Exactly. Joining us to talk about it and a whole lot more is founder of Mike Lee Strategy, Mike Lee, and Senior Research Fellow at the American Institute for Economic Research, Jason Sorens. Good morning, gents.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It is a good morning. Like I said, the Dow is up. So, Mike, why are we seeing this spike after a back-to-back record highs?
So, the thing is, new highs typically beget more new highs. So you get a sort of momentum factor behind you, but also, normally the market is hitting these new highs because of very good news. And so whenever you have these sharp sell-offs and recoveries, you build such enormous momentum behind these markets, behind this price movement, that people rush to get in. And a lot of the hedge fund community got margin calls towards the bottom and had to step on the sidelines. And as we're recovering, they're going to need to keep stepping in, combined with better than expected earnings, the big, beautiful bill passing, the reality that it may take some time, but over the course of the next year, interest rates are going to be substantially lower, artificial intelligence. There's a lot of good news coming in for stocks and for the overall economy.
Jason, do you agree? Because last time I checked, the bears need a blood transfusion because they're bleeding all over the street. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, this is a reaction to the trade deals and sort of lessening economic worries. What we've seen is that as these trade deals have come in, investors are more and more confident that the American economy can handle the fairly moderate level of tariffs that looks as if we're going to end up with. It looks as if when all is said and done, the average U.S. tariff rate will increase from somewhere around 3% to somewhere around 15%. That's what we saw on Japan. Japan's a large economy. We have a lot of trade with them. Some of the more complex industries are still going to suffer a little bit from this. We saw GM earnings doing very badly because they use so many parts that cross borders many times. But overall, the economy is taking this hit and soldiering on.
Yeah, well, let's get into that Japan trade deal, the trio of trade deals with Asia, actually, and they're having a big impact, especially this massive one with Japan. President Trump announcing the $550 billion deal last night, with the U.S. receiving 90% of the profits and the Japanese agreeing to pay 15% reciprocal tariffs. So Trump says it's going to create so many jobs, and really Japan will be trading. It'll open trade to include cars, trucks, rice, and certain other agricultural products. Jason, how big is this for the administration?
Well, I think it's a lower tariff than markets expected, so that's good news for the economy. It's good news for investors. 15% is seen as something that's tolerable. We don't have details yet on the $550 billion, but that would be definitely good news. I mean, that's a lot of money. And so we'll have to see if that involves investment in terms of opening new plants and offices and factories in the U.S., or if that means buying U.S. products. But either way, it's a positive for the economy.
True indeed. So, Mike, Asia-Pacific markets opened higher today following President Trump's announcement. But will the impact broaden Asian markets, specifically China? Because we know that China doesn't like to lose a lot of its production in terms of supply chain moving to Southeast Asian countries. What say you?
Yeah, look, a lot of complications around this China trade deal because our economies are inextricably linked. But to the degree that we can get more production out of China, especially drug production. So yesterday the headline was AstraZeneca, going to spend $50 billion to put drug manufacturing in Virginia. You're starting to see a domino effect with production moving to the U.S. for various types of industries, the largest being artificial intelligence. We saw last week with the president in Pennsylvania, the announcements there. So, look, I'm not as concerned with the Asian markets. If you have a strong S&P 500, a strong NASDAQ in the U.S., a strong U.S. economy, that creates a knock-on effect for the rest of the world. And the way that I like to describe it and think about it is that it's the U.S. economy driving the world economy, not the world economy driving the U.S. economy. So there may be temporary things which aren't as good for some of these other countries, but the stronger the U.S. gets, the better off the world is from an economic perspective.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's discuss a possible setback to success, scaring other countries from striking a deal with the United States. There are some reports out there that the Japanese Prime Minister Ishiba is planning to resign this month. He's hosting leaders from the European Union to Tokyo, today. So, I mean, Jason, is this an indication that the Japanese may have caved in to this trade deal, this endeavor?
Well, I think the incumbent party definitely needed some good news. What they're seeing is a challenge on their right flank. There are recent Senate elections in Japan, and a kind of right-wing populist, kind of, if you will, MAGA style or MAGA style movement won some seats there. And so I think they're worried about what the next election will hold for them. So they're looking for economic good news, and this may get them some.
Interesting. So here's another interesting development. President Trump reportedly meeting with Amazon's Jeff Bezos at the White House last week. Mike, do you think the Trump administration is expanding its search for partners to build the Golden Dome missile defense system?
Yes. I saw this headline. We'll see how this eventually plays out. And on some levels, and the way that Amazon is run as a company is spectacular. But I hate to be portrayed as an Elon fanboy. There's only one Elon Musk, and so he's so far ahead of everyone else because it's like an engineering company run by engineers, where Jeff Bezos, is a former hedge fund guy and really understands how to operate a company well. It's just not the same thing. And it's True. Like Google's Waymo cars and Tesla's robo-taxis. Those Waymos are pretty spectacular, and they're a little bit, there's more of them out there than the robo-taxis, but they cost $250,000 each to build, whereas the robo-taxis cost like $20,000. So you're just, you can have these headlines and these things can come out there, but I think it's going to be really hard to beat Elon at Elon's games, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So Elon is prime and Jeff is actually standard. I got it.
So Jason, Mike brought up Elon Musk. He's no fanboy, but he did bring him up. What about his fading role in all of this? SpaceX is reportedly warning investors of a political return for the enigmatic Musk. And while this isn't surprising, do you think it's a good idea? Because it certainly hasn't helped Tesla's stock price in the past.
Yeah, I think warns is the operative word there. Investors do not want Musk to return to politics. His proposed third party is likely going to go nowhere, just based on the history of third parties. The more time that Musk spends on political action, the worse off his companies will do. So, if he wants his companies to do well, he'll turn his hand to business, because he really is a genius.